You need help, Celeste, my sister Magnolia screamed across the backyard patio at our family barbecue in Riverstone Grove Park. We can't watch you destroy yourself anymore. The whole family had formed a semicircle around me like some twisted therapy session. My mother Cordelia clutching her pearls, my brother Jasper shaking his head in disappointment, my cousin Ophelia recording everything on her phone for family memories. I looked around at their concerned faces, at the carefully planned seating arrangement, at the intervention pamphlets my Aunt Vivienne was clutching behind her back, and I smiled. "You're absolutely right," I said calmly, adjusting the tiny recording device I'd clipped inside my blazer that morning. "I do need help, but what you don't know is that I've been recording every single conversation, every family gathering, every concerned phone call for the past 6 months. And what I captured is going to shock every single one of you. The truth? This intervention wasn't about helping me overcome some addiction or mental health crisis. This was about control, manipulation, and a family conspiracy that had been brewing for over 2 years. They thought they were staging an intervention to save me from myself, but I was about to expose exactly who needed saving, and it wasn't me. Let me tell you something about successful women in their 30s. We become targets, not from strangers or competitors, but from the people closest to us. The people who are supposed to celebrate our victories become the ones most threatened by them. And when you're Celeste Thorne, 34 years old, senior partner at Morrison & Associates Legal Group in downtown Crescent City, living in a penthouse apartment in the prestigious Meridian Heights district, driving a Tesla Model S, and finally living the life you worked 15 years to build? Well, that's when your own family decides you've gotten too big for your britches. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. From the moment I realized that my loving, supportive family had become my biggest threat. It was 18 months ago when I got the promotion that changed everything. Senior partner at 32, the youngest in the firm's history. I'd been working 100-hour weeks for 3 years straight, taking on the cases no one else wanted, building a reputation for winning impossible lawsuits, sacrificing every weekend and holiday to prove I belonged in that corner office with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Crescent Bay. The day I got the news, I was so excited I could barely contain myself. I called Magnolia first. She was working her shift at Riverstone General Hospital as a cardiac nurse, and I knew she'd understand what this meant. The years of law school debt, the unpaid internships, the entry-level positions where male colleagues with half my qualifications got promoted over me, all of it had finally paid off. "Maggie," I said when she answered, barely able to keep my voice professional since she was probably at the nurse's station. "I got it. I got the senior partner position." There was a pause. A long pause. Then, "Oh, wow. That's really great, Celeste. Really great." Something in her tone made my excitement falter. This was my sister, my best friend since childhood, the person who'd helped me study for the bar exam and celebrated with champagne when I passed. But she sounded distant, almost disappointed. "Are you okay?" I asked. "You sound weird." No, I'm fine," she said quickly. "Just busy here. We'll have to celebrate soon, okay? I have to go." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me standing in my new office, feeling strangely deflated. But I shook it off. Magnolia was probably just having a rough day at the hospital. She'd be excited once the shock wore off. I tried calling my brother Jasper next. He was managing the family's small chain of sporting goods stores, Thorne Athletics, 3 locations in Crescent City. Jasper had always been supportive of my career, always saying how proud he was to have a lawyer in the family. "Jasper, guess what?" I said when he picked up. "What's up, Celeste?" "I just made senior partner at Morrison & Associates." Another pause. This one even longer than Magnolia's. "Senior partner? At your age? How does that even work?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean, how does it work? I earned it. I've been working toward this for years." "Right. But, There weren't any other candidates? No one with more experience? I felt something cold settle in my stomach. There were other candidates. I was the best qualified. Okay, he said, but his tone suggested he didn't quite believe it. Well, congratulations, I guess. That's really something. That's really something. Not, I'm proud of you, or you deserve this, or I knew you could do it. That's really something. Like it was suspicious rather than impressive. By the time I called my mother, I was starting to feel like I was announcing a terminal diagnosis rather than the biggest professional achievement of my life. "Mother, I have wonderful news," I said when Cordelia answered her phone at the family estate in Willowbrook Heights. "I just made senior partner." Senior partner? Her voice was sharp, immediately alert. "Celeste, honey, are you sure you're ready for that kind of responsibility? That sounds like an enormous amount of pressure." Pressure? Not opportunity, not achievement, not success. Pressure? "I'm ready, Mother. I've been preparing for this my entire career."
"Well, I just hope you know what you're getting yourself into," she said. And I could hear that particular tone she got when she was worried about me making poor life choices. The same tone she'd used when I decided to go to law school instead of getting married right after college, like she'd hoped. These high-pressure positions can be very isolating, very stressful. I'd hate to see you sacrifice your health and your relationships for a job. Your health and your relationships. Code for, you're going to become even more difficult to manage if you get too successful. But the real shock came when I decided to surprise the family with a celebration dinner. I made reservations at Aurelius, the 5-star restaurant at the top of the Meridian Tower, the kind of place we'd always talked about going to for special occasions, but never quite made it to because of the cost. This was the kind of special occasion it was made for. I called everyone that afternoon. "Family dinner tonight at Aurelius at 7 p.m. I'm treating everyone to celebrate my promotion. Dress nice. This is going to be spectacular." The responses were interesting. "Tonight?" Magnolia said. "Celeste, that's really short notice. I have to work early tomorrow." "It's Thursday," I pointed out. "You always have Friday off." "Well, yes, but I'm tired, and Aurelius is so expensive. Are you sure you want to spend that much money?" Are you sure you want to spend that much money on celebrating the promotion that would allow me to afford exactly these kinds of experiences? Jasper was even worse. "Aurelius? Celeste, come on. That place is pretentious as hell. Can't we just do Olive Garden or something casual?" Olive Garden, to celebrate making senior partner at the most prestigious law firm in the city. But they all came, eventually. The whole family gathered around the table in Aurelius's private dining room, with its crystal chandeliers and panoramic view of Crescent City skyline. I ordered champagne, Dom Perignon, because if you can't drink the good stuff when you make senior partner, when can you? The dinner should have been perfect. The food was incredible, the service impeccable, the atmosphere exactly what I dreamed of for a celebration like this. But something was off. The conversation felt forced, stilted. Everyone seemed uncomfortable, like they were performing rather than celebrating. It wasn't until we were looking at dessert menus that I understood why. "So, Celeste," my cousin Ophelia swirling her wine glass thoughtfully, "what exactly does this promotion mean for you financially? I mean, are we talking about a significant salary increase?" The question was so direct, so inappropriate, that I almost choked on my champagne. "I'm sorry?" "Well, I'm just curious," she continued, as if asking about someone's salary at a family dinner was perfectly normal. "Senior partner sounds very impressive, but I wondered what the actual benefits might be." I looked around the table. Everyone was watching me with the same expression. Not proud or curious, but calculating, like they were trying to determine the exact value of my success. The benefits are that I get to do work I love at the highest level, I said carefully. Right, but money-wise, my Aunt Vivienne chimed in. I mean, Ophelia's just starting her photography business, and Magnolia's been talking about wanting to go back to school for her nurse practitioner degree, and Jasper's been looking at expanding the store locations. We're just all wondering if this changes anything for the family, you know? If this changes anything for the family. As if my promotion was a family windfall rather than my personal achievement. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a celebration dinner. This was an assessment. They hadn't come to honor my success. They'd come to figure out how much of it they could claim for themselves. I see, I said, setting down my champagne flute with deliberate calm. You're wondering if I'll be sharing my increased salary with everyone. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Magnolia jumped in with damage control. Celeste, that's not what we meant. We're proud of you, of course we are. It's just that, well, family helps family, right? And if you're doing well, then maybe there are ways you could help some of us achieve our dreams, too. Family helps family. The phrase that would haunt me for the next 18 months. Of course, I said, forcing a smile. Family helps family. But as I picked up the check, all $847 for dinner for 8 people, more than my mother's monthly grocery budget, I realized that my family's definition of help was very different from mine. They weren't asking for help achieving their dreams. They were asking for access to mine. The requests started the very next week. First, it was Jasper. He called me at the office on a Tuesday morning, sounding stressed and urgent. Celeste, I hate to bother you at work, but I have a situation with the store. The lease on the North Shore location is up for renewal, and the landlord is raising the rent by 30%. I can't afford it without some capital investment. How much are we talking about? I asked, already knowing I shouldn't. $15,000. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but it's just a loan. I'll pay you back with interest as soon as the expansion pays off. $15,000. My first request as a newly successful family member. Jasper, that's a significant amount of money. Have you looked into business loans? Banks are being weird about small business lending right now. And you know how much the North Shore store means to the family. Grandpa Thorne opened that location in 1987. It's part of our legacy. Our legacy. Suddenly, my money was tied to family history and tradition. I should have said no. I should have told him to work with a business advisor, explore other options, maybe downsize if necessary. Instead, I heard myself saying, "Let me think about it." Thank you, Celeste. I knew I could count on you. This is what having a successful sister means. We can all benefit from each other's good fortune. We can all benefit from each other's good fortune. Not, I'm grateful for your help, or I appreciate you considering this. We can all benefit. Like my success was communal property. I transferred the $15,000 that afternoon, telling myself it was an investment in family harmony. Jasper was right. The North Shore store was important to our family history, and he'd promised to pay me back with interest. Of course, he never mentioned a timeline for that payback, and when I brought it up 6 months later, he seemed genuinely surprised that I expected actual repayment rather than just the warm glow of having helped family. But Jasper's request was just the appetizer. The main course came from Magnolia 2 weeks later. "Celeste," she said, over coffee at Brewster's on Elmwood Avenue, "I've been thinking about what we talked about at dinner, about family helping family." "Okay," I said cautiously. "Well, you know I've always wanted to get my nurse practitioner degree. It would mean so much more money, so much more job satisfaction. I could finally move out of that tiny apartment and maybe even think about buying a house." "That sounds wonderful, Maggie. You'd make an excellent nurse practitioner. The problem is tuition. The program at Crescent City University is 2 years, and it's expensive, really expensive, and I can't work full-time while I'm in school. I already knew where this was going, but I let her continue. I was wondering, since you're doing so well now, if maybe you could help me with the costs. It would be like investing in my future, in our family's future. Our family's future. Again, my individual success was being reframed as collective opportunity. How much would you need? I asked. Tuition is $40,000 a year, plus living expenses while I'm not working full-time, so maybe $60,000 total over 2 years? $60,000, more than most people's annual salary, more than I'd ever imagine spending on anything other than a house or car. Maggie, that's a lot of money. I know, she said quickly, but think about it as an investment. Once I'm a nurse practitioner, I'll be making twice what I make now. I'll be able to pay you back, and I'll be contributing more to the family financially too. Everyone wins. Everyone wins, except for the person fronting $60,000 with no guarantee of return. But Magnolia was my sister, my best friend, the person who'd supported my dreams when no one else believed I could become a lawyer. How could I not support hers? Let me research the program. I want to make sure it's a good investment. Her face lit up like I just handed her the check. Oh, Celeste, thank you! I knew you'd understand. This is going to change everything for me. This is going to change everything for me. Not for us, not for the family, for her, using my money. I spent that weekend researching nurse practitioner programs, calculating costs, trying to figure out if $60,000 was reasonable. It was a lot of money, but it wasn't impossible. And if it really would help Magnolia build a better career, maybe it was worth it. I was still deliberating when cousin Ophelia called on Sunday evening. Celeste! Perfect timing! I was just thinking about you. Hey, Ophelia, what's up? Well, I've been working on launching my photography business, Ophelia Rose Photography, and I'm at the point where I really need to invest in professional equipment and marketing, but startup costs are brutal. Here we go, I thought. I was wondering, since you're doing so amazingly well with the law firm, if you might be interested in being my business partner. Not like a silent partner, but a real investor. I could use about $25,000 to get properly launched, and once I'm established, we could split the profits. Split the profits from a business she wanted me to fund entirely. Ophelia, I don't know anything about photography as a business. You don't need to. You know business, period. You're a lawyer, you understand contracts and marketing and all that professional stuff I'm terrible at. We'd be perfect partners. Perfect partners, where one partner provides all the capital and expertise, and the other partner provides what exactly? Let me think about it, I said, the phrase that was becoming my standard response to family financial requests. Of course, take your time. I just know this could be amazing for both of us. Finally, the family has someone successful enough to help everyone else reach their potential too. The family has someone successful enough to help everyone else. Not, I'm grateful you're considering it, or I hope we can work something out. The family has someone successful enough, like my success existed specifically to serve everyone else's ambitions. By the time I hung up, I felt like I was drowning. In the span of 3 weeks, my family had identified me as a funding source for $60,000 in education costs, $25,000 in business investment, and $15,000 in business loans. $100,000 of my newfound success that they'd already allocated to their dreams. But that was just the beginning. The real shock came when I started paying attention to how they talked about me when they thought I wasn't listening.
It was at Cousin Phoenix's housewarming party. He just bought a condo in the Riverside district, and the whole family gathered to celebrate. I'd contributed to his furniture fund, of course, because family helps family. I was in the kitchen helping set up appetizers when I heard my name from the living room. Well, of course, Celeste could afford to help with the furniture, my Aunt Vivienne was saying. She's making partner money now. She probably spends more on lunch in a week than Phoenix spent on that couch. It's nice having someone successful in the family, my mother replied. Finally, we have someone who can really contribute when people need help. Someone who can really contribute. Like my previous contributions, emotional support, time, effort, small financial help when I was making less money, hadn't been real contributions. I just hope she doesn't get too big for her britches, Magnolia said, and I froze with a tray of cheese and crackers in my hands. You know how success can change people, make them think they're better than their family? Oh, Celeste would never, Ophelia jumped in. She's too generous for that. Besides, she knows we're the ones who supported her through law school and everything. She owes us. She owes us? The phrase hit me like a physical blow. I owed them? For what? For loving me? For being related to me? For existing in the same family unit? I set down the tray and walked quietly back toward the kitchen, my mind reeling. This was how they saw me now? Not as Celeste, their daughter and sister and cousin, who had worked incredibly hard to achieve something meaningful. I was an asset, a resource, a return on their investment of basic familial affection. And according to them, I owed them access to everything I'd earned. That night, lying in my penthouse bedroom staring at the ceiling, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to start documenting these conversations. Not because I planned to use the recordings against them, but because I needed proof that I wasn't going crazy. I needed evidence that the people I loved most in the world really were treating me like a personal ATM rather than a person. I ordered a discreet recording device online, a tiny digital recorder that could clip inside a jacket or purse, virtually invisible but capable of capturing crystal clear audio for hours at a time. When it arrived, I tested it during a phone call with Jasper about his store lease. The quality was perfect. Every word, every tone, every telling pause captured in high definition. I started carrying it to every family gathering, every family phone call, every casual coffee where someone inevitably brought up money or favors or opportunities for me to help them achieve their goals. What I discovered over the following months was worse than I had imagined. Not only were they using me financially, but they were actively manipulating me emotionally to ensure the money kept flowing. They had strategies, tactics. They talked about me like I was a project to be managed, rather than a person to be loved. The recording that changed everything happened 4 months ago at my mother's 58th birthday party. I was in the bathroom when I heard voices from the hallway outside. Magnolia, Jasper, and Vivienne talking in urgent whispers. "She's getting resistant," Magnolia was saying. "When I asked about help with my car payment last week, she actually asked for a payment timeline." Payment timeline? Vivienne sounded appalled. Like we're strangers taking out business loans? That's exactly what I mean, Jasper said. She's getting too comfortable with saying no. We need to remind her that family comes first. Maybe we should stage an intervention, Vivienne suggested. Tell her we're worried about how success is changing her, how she's becoming selfish and disconnected from the family. An intervention? For the crime of expecting loan repayments and occasionally saying no to financial requests? That's actually not a bad idea, Magnolia said thoughtfully. If we frame it right, make it about her well-being, she'll feel guilty for being resistant. She'll want to prove she's still the generous, family-oriented person she used to be. Plus, Jasper added, if we do it publicly at a family gathering, she'll be embarrassed to argue. She'll just agree to whatever we think is best. They were planning to manipulate me into continued financial compliance by staging a fake mental health intervention and using public shame as leverage. My own family,
The people who are supposed to love and protect me. I stood in that bathroom, listening to them plan my emotional destruction, and I realized something that changed me fundamentally. They didn't see me as family anymore. They saw me as a business opportunity, a revenue stream, a problem to be solved when I didn't generate enough profit for their collective benefit. That's when I decided to give them exactly what they were asking for, an intervention, but not the kind they were planning. Over the next 4 months, I documented everything. Every request for money, every guilt trip, every conversation where they strategized about managing me like a financial resource rather than loving me like a family member. I recorded phone calls where they coached each other on the best ways to approach me for funds. I captured discussions about my obligations to the family and debates about whether I was becoming too selfish when I asked reasonable questions about loan terms. The evidence was overwhelming. Hours and hours of audio proving that my family had conspired to exploit my success, manipulate my emotions, and treat me like a personal bank rather than a person they loved. But the recording that sealed their fate was from 3 weeks ago, when they started planning today's intervention in earnest.
The look on their faces when I pulled out the tiny recording device and started playing their own voices back to them, planning my emotional manipulation, laughing about my gullibility, strategizing about how to maximize their access to my money, was worth every dollar I'd lost to their schemes. "You've been recording us?" Magnolia gasped, her face white with shock. "For 6 months," I confirmed, advancing the recording to their conversation about staging this exact intervention. "Would you like to hear the part where you planned this whole thing? Or should we skip to the section where Jasper explains how to make me feel guilty enough to increase my financial cooperation?" The silence that followed was deafening, but it was just the beginning. Because what they didn't know, what none of them suspected, was that I hadn't just been recording their conversations about me. I'd been recording everything, including the conversations they'd had about each other, the secrets they'd shared when they thought no one was listening, the ways they'd been manipulating each other just as systematically as they'd been manipulating me. And I was about to play all of it. The silence stretched for what felt like hours as I scrolled through my phone, selecting the perfect recording to play next. Their faces were frozen in shock, but I was just getting started. "Let's see," I said, enjoying the power for the first time in 18 months. "Should we listen to Magnolia telling Ophelia that Celeste is so desperate to be the family hero, we just have to make her think we need saving? Or perhaps Jasper's conversation with Vivienne about how successful people have guilt complexes we can exploit?" "Celeste, please," my mother Cordelia finally whispered. "We can explain." "Explain what?" I interrupted, pressing play on another recording. Jasper's voice filled the backyard. "The beauty is that she makes so much money she won't even miss what we're taking. It's like skimming from a corporation." My brother's face went ashen. Ophelia started crying. But I wasn't finished. Here's my personal favorite. I selected the most damning recording of all. "This is from last week, when you were finalizing today's intervention plan. The key is making her feel like she's failed us as a family member. Once she's emotional and guilty, she'll agree to anything to prove she still loves us. I'm thinking we could get her to agree to a monthly family allowance, maybe $5,000 each." $5,000 each, per month. They'd been planning to manipulate me into paying them $60,000 annually for the privilege of being their sister and daughter. "You want to know what the real intervention should be about?" I stood up, pocketing my phone and looking around the circle of family members who suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. "These are copies of every recording, every transcript, every financial transaction from the past 18 months. I've calculated that you collectively have taken $127,000 from me through loans that were never intended to be repaid, investments in businesses that don't exist, and emergencies that were actually luxuries." Jasper tried to speak, but I held up my hand.
I've also consulted with my colleagues about the legal definition of financial elder abuse and coordinated fraud. Do you know that conspiring to manipulate someone into giving you money through emotional coercion is actually illegal? The panic in their eyes was immediate and satisfying. But here's what's going to happen instead, I continued, my voice calm and professional. You're going to pay back every penny, starting with payment plans I'll be sending you next week. You're going to stop treating my success like your personal windfall, and you're going to get therapy to figure out why you thought destroying your daughter and sister was an acceptable way to solve your financial problems. I gathered my purse and started walking toward the parking lot. "Where are you going?" Magnolia called out, finally finding her voice. I turned back one last time. "I'm going home to my penthouse apartment that I earned, to drink wine that I paid for, to celebrate finally being free from a family that saw me as a bank account instead of a person." As I reached my Tesla, I heard Ophelia call out desperately, "We can work this out! Family helps family!" I smiled, starting the engine. "I'm absolutely right," I called back through my open window. "Family does help family. And the best help I can give you right now is teaching you that actions have consequences." The last thing I heard as I drove away was the sound of their intervention dissolving into panicked arguments about who was responsible for what and how they were going to explain this to the rest of the family. 6 months later, I received my first loan repayment from Jasper. It included a handwritten note. "I'm sorry, Celeste. I hope someday you can forgive us." I'm still deciding if I will. But at least, now, that decision is entirely mine to make.